All right, there we go. Welcome everyone to the Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. It's great to have you on board with us. I'll get into some introductions in just a moment, but I see a lot of people are still clicking on, which is great. Roy's joining us from Bentonville in Arizona. Welcome to you, Roy. Jeff is in Houston, Texas. Brian's in Manitoba, Canada. Restarted running half a dozen years ago. Cool. Well, welcome, Brian. Good to have you on. Vittorio is joining us from Kenton, UK. Scott is in North Carolina. Eric is in Pensacola, Florida. One of my favorite parts of the world as well. Got some of the most beautiful beaches in the US. Welcome to you, Eric. Mark's in Montreal, Canada. Cool. Looks like everything is working exactly the way it should be. Dan's from the great state of Wisconsin. Welcome, Dan. Good to have you on. Steven's with us. Graham, Ashok, cool. He's in Manchester. Everything seems to be working 100%, which is great. So we're going to show you today how to run well and faster beyond 50 without training more or harder than you currently are, all while avoiding injury. And we are going to teach you this by showing you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. A super brief introduction. That gentleman that you see on screen is Lindsay Parry. He'll be joining me live on the call in just a second. He just popped me a text message saying he's having one or two internet problems. So fingers crossed, he should be with us shortly. He is a tech whiz and we'll be sorting that out, I'm sure. But just so you know who Lindsay is, he is known as the official Comrades Marathon coach. For those of you who don't know, the Comrades Marathon is the world's oldest and largest ultra marathon. Over 20,000 people enter it every year. It is absolutely massive. He's also the creator of the Faster Beyond 50 training framework. And for the past 15 years, has worked with both professional and amateur athletes in the build-up to some of the world's most prestigious races and helped them to PRs and podiums in some of those events. Some of the names you may recognize, Richard Murray, the triathlete. Lindsay worked with Richard up to his very first Olympic Games, as well as his first World Triathlon Series race victory in Hamburg. He's also coached back-to-back winners at the Comrades Marathon in Caroline Wassman and Shanae Bosman. And he's also led teams to 3 Olympic Games. He's been to London, Rio, and recently to Tokyo. And he's also been to 2 Commonwealth Games as well. And he's a pretty decent marathoner and runner in his own right, a marathon PR of 2:45. And managed to sneak another sub-3-hour marathon this past weekend, which is brilliant. So an even briefer introduction, just so you know who I am. I'm known as the guy who lost a Backstreet Boy en route to running his very first ultra. I got a bee in my bonnet about 11 years ago and decided that I wanted to start running, and I clocked in at a pretty hefty 360 pounds or 165 kilograms and decided I wanted to start. And since then, I've gone on to finish 3 Comrades marathons. I've done 5 Ironmans, run multiple other marathons as well. And the good news is I'm not a 2:45 marathoner. I'm a lot more average than that. That is for sure. So here is what you are going to be learning during this masterclass. We're going to show you how to get faster without training more so that you don't feel tired all the time. We're going to show you how to avoid getting injured so that you can finally get back to running consistently and pain-free, and how to keep running faster into your 50s and beyond so that you can keep doing the thing you love for as long as you can. Essentially, we are going to show you a new way to train as a 50-plus-year-old. You might be wondering, well, why is that important to me right now? The truth of the matter is, most of what you've learned over the years as a dead runner is dead wrong. And the reason I say that is because most of the training plans or schedules you've been following don't take your age into account. And because of that, they're probably doing more harm than good. That's the reason why you're constantly running in pain. That's why you're constantly fighting injury. And that's also why your endurance just gets worse and worse year after year. And the truth of the matter is the clock is ticking. The sooner we can help you sort this out, the sooner we can get you back to running the way you want to run. So let's just make sure we are all on the same page. Is this for you? If you're over 50 and you want to run faster, this is definitely for you, okay? If you're training harder than ever, but it feels like you're running slower than ever, then this is definitely for you as well. If you want to run pain-free, you're in the right place. And if you want to improve your endurance, then this is definitely for you as well. If you're one of those athletes who possibly want to good for age qualify for races like Boston or perhaps London, this is for you. Or perhaps you want to be in contention for age group honors at those races, then this is definitely for you as well. And if you want to run injury-free and keep running injury-free for years to come, this is for you, because we are going to show you how to prolong your running life, okay? And that is if you're worried about being forced to stop running due to injuries. So just a couple of house rules so you know where we stand on a few issues. The first one is that we have a zero tolerance policy to cheating, and that cuts across two areas. The first and obvious one is doping. We will not. We refuse to work with any athlete that tests positive for a banned substance. We have a one-strike rule. If you get caught, that's it. We will not work with you. The second is course cutting. If that's what you're into, that's great. We're definitely not your guys, okay? We also are firm believers in no magic gear. As much as the marketers will want you to believe that these socks are going to help you do this, or these supplements are going to help you do that, we are firm believers in working hard, but working smart. There's no shortcuts or hype when it comes to what we do. And I think it's also really important to say that our results are not remotely typical. We're very lucky that we get to work with some incredibly gifted athletes. So I think that goes without saying. And then it's also really important to say this up front, that most people who buy any sort of how to run better training online generally won't improve their running whatsoever. And it's for a multitude of reasons. It's the same reason that somebody gets fired up and they decide that they want to start running. Perhaps they've had a couple of drinks on New Year's Eve and they decide, you know what, this is it. This is my year. So they go out and buy themselves a treadmill, and all that treadmill does is sit in the corner of their living room and it gathers dust, and they hang their dry cleaning on it, and they never actually get to running. So let's deal with the elephant in the room up front. And we have a confession to make. You're probably thinking this, and you are 100% correct. Some people do have an unfair advantage. What I mean by that, I don't know about you, but I wasn't lucky enough to choose my parents correctly. So I definitely didn't win the gene lottery. But there are some people who did win the gene lottery, and because of that, they are unbelievable runners. And if you won the gene lottery, chances are it is going to help you run faster. But what we're going to show you today cuts across all abilities. So if you are one of those athletes who won the gene lottery, fantastic, this is going to apply to you. Or if you average or back of the packer, this is going to apply to you just as much. Cool. Quick story to get the ball rolling before I bring Lindsay in. I absolutely love this photo. It was taken in the late 1970s at the Comrades Marathon. I mentioned Comrades at the start of this webinar. It's the world's largest and oldest ultra marathon. And in this photo, the gentleman on the right of this picture is a guy by the name of Hosea Charlie. And his nickname was Horse. And he was probably, in my opinion, the sort of best runner never to have won Comrades. And the reason he never won Comrades is because he was simply born in the wrong era. The gentleman in the center of that picture is a guy by the name of Bruce Fordyce. He's the guy with the long, flowing blonde locks. And Bruce was an absolute beast in his day. He was simply unbeatable. In the 1980s, he was legendary around Comrades. He won 9 Comrades marathons. He's just superb athlete, former 50-kilometer world record holder. And to the left of that photo is Trevor Parry, who happens to be Lindsay's dad. And Trevor was also a great runner, a 2:20 marathoner at his prime. He's got 3 top 10 finishes at Comrades, 3 gold medals. He's finished second in the London to Brighton. Just a really good runner himself. And this is the 3 of them going toe-to-toe in Comrades about 2/3 into the race. And for Trevor, like so many people, when he turned 50, things started to go a little bit south. And what he found was his time started declining. Because of that, he started training harder and harder. And because of that, he was constantly running in some sort of pain and was picking up these sort of niggling or nagging injuries along the way as well. And you know the mantra, you've probably said it to yourself, no pain, no gain. That was what he said. Like, you know what? I'm slightly older than I used to be. If I want to get the same results, I simply need to work harder. While all of this was happening, Lindsay was at university completing his Bachelor of Science degree in human kinetics, and he just committed to learn from the masters. There was no shiny object syndrome, no quick fixes. He followed the advice and modeled the advice of successful coaches and athletes, and read as much as he could get his hands on. All the scientific papers, all the books, the likes of Arthur Lydiard, Jeff Galloway, Matt Fitzgerald, Greg McMillan, and then went on to do his postgraduate degree, where he majored in injury rehabilitation and special populations. And one of those special populations happened to be the aging athlete. While all of this was happening, the Comrades Marathon was looking at their race statistics, and they were picking up quite an alarming trend. And what they were finding was the average age of the Comrades runner was getting older and older year after year. They simply weren't attracting a younger demographic to come and run the race. And they were concerned by it. They were looking at different options. And what they decided to do was hire Lindsay soon out of university as the official Comrades marathon coach to try and attract some younger runners to Comrades. But what that did was give Lindsay this living laboratory, if you'd like, where he could test and experiment things on thousands of aging runners. And before Lindsay took over as the Comrades coach in 2005, only 84.4% of people who started Comrades finished the race. Within 2 years, he managed to get that up to just under 91%, and it's pretty much been there or thereabout ever since. Things for Trevor, his dad, however, were going from bad to worse. He kept pushing through those nagging or niggling injuries, and eventually he started to break down with injury completely and then started missing weeks of training due to that injury. And you know what happens as well so often is you break down with an injury and you have to take some time off and you try and force the comeback and you simply break down again. And that's exactly what was happening to Trevor. And it was just compounding the problem. He was really, really struggling. But there was one run in particular that really turned things around. Lindsay, I'm going to bring you in here. Good day to you. Nice to have you on the call. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this run that you had with your dad?
Yeah, so look, my dad and I have been running together since I was 5 years old. And I don't know, at the time he was maybe 53 or 54, can't remember the exact age, but he was complaining about a sore knee or sore something, which he'd been doing quite a lot lately. And I was like, look, Dad, I don't mind listening to you talking about your injuries, but you've literally spent hundreds of thousands on my qualifications. Maybe it's about time you listen to something I had to say. And it just so happens that I'd also just recently started beating him at our local 5 mile or 8K time trial. So as the fastest runner in the house, I guess he figured I had some value to add to the conversation. And that literally started a coaching relationship with my dad that saw him getting faster and faster every year until when he turned 60, he was running times that he last ran as a 50-year-old. He's still running flipping well. And in December before the pandemic, he ran 47:18 for 10K at the age of 70. Soon after that, he ran a sub 1:45 minute and a half at 5,000 feet or over 1,500 meters above sea level with 1,000 feet of elevation or 300 meters of elevation in the half marathon, almost 30 degrees Celsius. And he ran the sub 1:45, which for me is actually just about his best achievement. And then even more recently, he ran a sub 4 hour marathon just the other day, now that races have opened up again. So yeah, at the age of 74, still going like a Boeing.
Absolutely amazing. So basically what happened was Lindsay took all the information that he was reading about and studying about at university, all the testing and experimenting he was doing with the athletes, with the Comrades field and athletes like his dad, and distilled it down into what worked and what didn't, and created the Faster Beyond 50 training framework. And that's exactly what we're going to run through with you today. It's made up of 5 pillars. This is just the 10,000-foot view. We're going to dig into each one of these in a lot of detail. But pillar number 1 of the Faster Beyond 50 framework is recovery. Pillar number 2 is pacing. Pillar number 3 is regular scheduled walk breaks. Pillar number 4 is strength training. And pillar number 5 is consistency. As I said at the start of the call, we love questions. So if you have any, please do feel free to pop them into the chat. Devlin, who's on our team, is moderating the chat for us. He'll flag questions, and we'll try and answer as many of them as we can throughout. If we don't get to your question during, we'll definitely stick around afterwards and answer it in a full Q&A. Lindsay, before we jump into pillar number 1, let's just touch on why it is we get slower as we get older. I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, look, the primary driver here is a loss of strength. So that actually already starts in our 3rd decade of life, and we lose 3% strength per decade, and that accelerates once we get to our 50s. And when people hear 3%, that sounds like nothing, but that is enough. That in a recent study in the US, they showed that the average 70-year-old female cannot pick up a 10-pound or a 3-kilogram bag of dog food. So it's a very significant loss of strength that starts in our 30s and continues late into life. That means that we're needing to do more work on a relative basis because we've got less to do that work with. Therefore, we do more damage, and therefore we need more time for recovery, which we don't give, and that pushes up our injury risk and our fatigue in a nutshell.
Cool. That's a great place to start. Let's jump into pillar number one, and that is recovery. Lindsay, why is recovery so important?
Yeah, so without recovery, we do not get any adaptation to training. And I think that's a misconception. People think it's the hard training that brings the physiological changes, but it's actually the recovery. And this graph really illustrates it much more clearly than I could explain without it. But we've essentially got two graphs there on the same axis. We've got the green graph at the top, red graph at the bottom for those of you who, like Brad, are colorblind. But essentially what we are looking for is the cycle of load, physiological or physical failure and or damage that comes with that training load, and then the body responds, and it sets in motion a process where it fixes, repairs, and because it doesn't like that systemic failure, it improves the system. And so that is the process by which we get stronger, fitter, and faster. And if we keep doing the appropriate dose and we allow the recovery, then we keep improving as we go along. Because we're trying to get better, as we get better and stronger, we can do more load. That causes a slight failure and a response. And that's the cycle we want to get into. Unfortunately, as we get older, the red graph at the bottom is the cycle that we get stuck in, because now we get into this phase where we go like, obviously, if I want to run like I used to run, I'm going to have to train harder. To get the same results, I need to train harder. And so when we get tired, when we get sore, we think that's a normal part of the process. But what's really happening there is that because we're working harder, we're doing more damage. The normal amount of time that we've always given to recover isn't enough time. And so we hit the body with the next training load before it's able to even catch up, never mind before it's been able to supercompensate. And we start getting down into this hole. We go, don't worry, this is normal. I've got to work harder if I want to be the same. And we also convince ourselves that when we get to the taper, we'll freshen up. And the unfortunate reality is that we don't get to the taper because we get injured. And even if we do get through the taper, it's not enough to freshen us up. We end up starting on race day flat and tired and underperforming.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay, it's often said that you shouldn't train children the same way you do adults. And the same applies with 50, 60, and 70-year-olds. You shouldn't be training the same way you were when you were 20 and 30. And it's the way you structure things that's so important. Why is the way you structure your training so crucial?
100%, Brad. And I think what's important on this slide is to say that the type, not the exact workouts, but the type of workouts that you used to respond well to. If you're someone who responds really well to high intensity, to hills, to intervals, then you are still going to be a responder to those workouts. We need to adjust the volume and the intensity rest ratio, but those type of workouts you're still going to respond to. If you respond well to long runs, you're still going to respond well to those runs. Okay. Then the next layer of a plan is, okay, but I've got to address some weaknesses or put some specific things in place to prepare me for the actual race that I'm training for. Okay. So that needs to go into the plan. What you're referring to, Brad, is the final layer of the plan, and that's actually making decisions about what to leave out and what to compromise on in terms of lowering the volume, changing the intensity. Because as we get older, the recovery is no longer important. It's absolutely critical. So we have to make space in the program to allow ourselves to recover between workouts.
Lindsay, let me ask this question. We often, when we do these sort of master classes every now and again, we often get this question: how do you know you've recovered sufficiently?
Yeah, that's really a great question, Brad. So I think I like to roll through essentially three layers. And the first layer is a very superficial, how do I feel? Now, if you sore, if there's pain, if there's stiffness, then you know you haven't recovered from a session. So you need to put things in place like rest, or at the very least low impact activities like swimming and cycling, but you cannot carry on running when there's pain present. On that same level, when you take stairs, so if you've got a flight of stairs at home, or you've got stairs at the office, or stairs at the mall, when you're walking upstairs, once again, you're fit, you're healthy, you're training well. You should be able to manage a flight of stairs no problem. So if you're getting quite fatigued in the muscles when you're climbing those stairs, it's probably a sign that you haven't quite got the balance right between the work and recovery in your plan. Then if we dive down into a more of a physiological level, resting heart rate is a really good way of tracking if you're recovering, and it's quite simple. We all have a genetic link to heart rate, but effectively when we are fit and training well, we want low numbers. That's specific to the individual. What we're tracking is, are the numbers going up? And if the numbers are going up, that's telling us that we aren't recovering well and we need to back off a little bit. And then the final layer is that with the technology improving all the time, with your top of the market wearables, you can now track heart rate variability, even more sensitive than resting heart rate. And look, at the end of the program, if anyone's interested in this, we can unpack it in the Q&A. But for the purpose of this answer, what we're looking for with heart rate variability is higher numbers. Some units give a score, so you do need to read the manual so that you can use heart rate variability properly. But if you're measuring actual heart rate variability, we want higher numbers. Lower numbers tell us that the system is not in equilibrium. You need to give yourself more recovery time.
I'm just having a chuckle because you just told me to read the manual, Lindsay. That's never going to happen. This was the first big change that you made with your dad, was sorting out recovery. And it's a pretty cool story. Won't you tell us sort of what you did and the results that came from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad was a 7-day-a-week runner. He ran pretty much every day of the year. He took 3 days off a year, and that was the day before all of his main races, 2 marathons and an ultra that he used to race every year. And the day after, he was back out there. So I still remember as a youngster looking out the hotel room, he used to call it running. And to me, it looked more like an insect trying to get over a hot plate on a stove. But that was him. He was out there the day after. So when he started asking me, what do you think I should do? After falling over and then standing up, I said to him, look, I know you're not going to stop running, but can we in the short term just cut back to 4 days a week so we can start giving your body some time to recover from these little niggles? And it was like I'd given him a magic pill. Literally, almost instantly, within 2 weeks, he started to turn around, and he literally got faster and faster and faster and faster. And here he is at the age of 60. This is a race that we used to run together every single year. And after getting slower and slower and slower for 5 years, he got faster and faster and faster for the next 7 years. And here he is at his 60th birthday, running to the second the same time he ran when he was 50 years old a decade earlier.
Absolutely amazing. So just to sum up this pillar, okay, and this is so important. The only training that you can benefit from is the training that you fully recover from. Lindsay, let's jump into pillar number 2, and that is pacing. And this is, I mean, you see athletes making mistakes all the time, but this is the biggest mistake that you see amateur athletes making.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd say at least 9 out of 10 amateur athletes make this mistake. And it gets worse as we get older because we feel this constant pressure to be able to run the pace that we're supposed to run. So almost all amateur athletes run their easy runs too hard. And now I have to emphasize the wording here, because whenever I get to this pillar or I explain this concept to people, they hear that Coach Parry is saying that we must run easy all the time. I am not saying that. I'm saying when we run easy, we don't run easy enough. And because we don't run easy enough there, we're not getting the right physiological adaptation. But even more important, we're not able to do the hard sessions hard enough.
Cool. Lindsay, let's unpack this a bit. Why is it so important to be running at the correct paces in training?
Brad, we're looking for a very specific physiological response during that easy running, okay? Whether you're training for 800 or 1500 on the track, or you're training for a 100-kilometer road race, our aerobic physiology is what we are trying to stimulate, and it's really important in terms of energy supply when we are competing in our chosen sport, which is endurance running, okay? And if we run in the right zone, we're going to get that physiological adaptation, but very importantly, we're going to get it at a reduced eccentric stress. Okay, so I'm going to unpack what that means quickly, because it's really the key to this. So we've got two primary types of muscle contractions during movement. Okay, the first allows the propulsion. It's what drives us off the ground. Okay, that is our concentric contraction. Concentric contraction, muscle contracts, more and more muscle fibers are in contact with each other. We call that a strong muscle contraction. The muscle's in a strong position. We're unlikely to get injured when we're in that position. When we land, when that propulsion phase ends and we land, we hit the ground. We hit the ground with force. The muscles then change function to a protective function. They act as shock absorbers to protect the skeletal system, okay? When that happens, we have an eccentric contraction. The muscle fibers are sliding out from each other. The muscle is lengthening. So you can see fewer muscle fibers in contact with each other. The muscle is in a weakened or compromised position. That's where we do the major damage, okay? So when we run easy enough, we reduce that eccentric stress. So just to unpack that just a little bit further, because this is such a crucial part of the pillar. That physiological response that we want, the aerobic physiological response, the part of our energy system that we are developing to pull the oxygen out of the air through the alveoli via the circulatory system. So during aerobic training, we're improving the circulatory system, the efficiency of the heart, the movement of the blood through the blood vessels. We're improving the red blood cell capacity of the blood. Down at the sites of the muscles, we're laying down extra capillary beds so that, again, we can get more blood, more oxygen to the cells. Inside those cells, we've got little mitochondria, and those you can think of as the coal-powered stations in the muscle. They actually provide the spark that allows that contraction, and they use the oxygen and the energy substrate, fat and carbohydrates, to produce something called ATP, which is the spark. Okay, so that is the process that we put in place, and obviously there's the reverse process of then eventually getting rid of the carbon dioxide. But those are the systems and processes we are trying to improve. It happens across a really broad range. Coaches will talk about zone 2, aerobic zone, under thresholds. Those are the types of terminology you've heard. What's very important is that on the very lower, slower, easier end, you're getting the same physiological adaptation as you are on the upper end. And in fact, we've just found a really great piece of research that literally shows that very easy exercise for 15 minutes elicits one of the best responses for improving cardiac output. Okay, so again, we do also need to do the long runs, but the point is to get some of these changes. We don't even have to do long exercise, but the intensity is crucial in terms of training all of these things. At the faster end, same adaptation, high eccentric, high damage. But if we do it in the right place, we cut down recovery time, we improve ourselves in this run, and it means that we're fresher when we need to be for our hard runs in the future.
Cool. Lindsay, great question from Dave. Dave wants to know, is this the same approach as MAF training?
Okay. So Dave, that's a brilliant question, because that kind of highlights exactly what I'm talking about. So I do believe in MAF training. There is a time and a place, and certainly for your easy run. So for everyone else on the call, MAF running was developed by Dr. Phil Maffetone. It stands for maximal aerobic function. So it's very similar to what I'm talking about. If I'm going to put a number on it, I'm talking about running at about 80% of your anaerobic threshold. But what's quite important and where we are different from Dr. Phil Maffetone is that we still believe, particularly in this 50 plus age group, that we also have to take part of the coordination and the neuromuscular component, and doing higher intensity workout plays an important role there. So there are times where only running easy is beneficial, but in terms of as a pure MAF principle, Phil Maffetone only believes in doing very small amounts of high intensity work way down the line in training. So we're not quite the same, but there's definitely some overlap.
Cool. Great question, Dave. Thanks for that. For me, I love thinking in pictures, and this really drives this point home. So I don't know anybody who doesn't love getting new running shoes. So let's say, for example, you go to your favorite retailer and they're selling the shoes that you run in for $197. You then go home and you jump online and you find the exact same pair of shoes for $147. They're exactly the same. There's no difference. Same features, same benefits, same colors. Everything is exactly the same. The only difference is the one on the right costs 25% less. You'd be crazy not to buy the shoe for $147, and that's exactly what Lindsay is saying. You get exactly the same benefit running at the slow end of that zone than at the faster end of that zone, but the cost on your body is less. Lindsay, there is a trick to making this work, and like the recovery pillar, this one you could do on your next run and you will see it working straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this takes me to the point from the first slide, is that as amateur athletes, we want to feel like we're getting the most out of every workout, okay? To get the most out of every workout, you need to do exactly what the point of the workout is. So if you start doing your easy runs easy enough, you're immediately going to feel better. Literally, today you'll feel better. By next week, you'll feel like a different athlete. Now, the trick is not to take advantage of that and get back to old habits. Prove how fit you're getting. Show yourself that you can still run at the paces you used to run. You're feeling great because it's working. Do your easy runs the way they're supposed to be done. Do your intervals the way they're supposed to be done.
Yeah, a great example of someone who's really dialed this pacing in is Tony Vicente, who's on the screen now. Tony lives in Bahrain in the Middle East, and when he turned 50, he was desperate to run another sub 4-hour marathon. He said he knew the clock was ticking, time was running out, but he wanted to do it before it was too late. And what he felt was that in order to run a faster marathon, he needed to train faster. But what he was finding was the harder he trained, the slower he got. He then came to us in early 2018, started working with us, and at the age of 56, in the build-up to an ultra marathon in 2019, he ran a marathon as a training run. He wasn't tapered, it wasn't his A race, and he ran a 3:55 marathon as a training run. And it is just because he slowed his easy runs down. He said, I felt like I could have gone sub 350 on the day had I actually raced it. And Tony just keeps getting better and better. In October 2019, he ran a 23:32 5K. A year on, he ended up running a 20:53 on exactly the same course. And then also late last year ran a 10K PR in his late 50s of 45:45, which is absolutely amazing. So just to sum this pillar up, okay, this is so important. If you run your easy runs easy enough, it reduces that long-term fatigue on your body so that you're able to run those hard runs hard enough. Cool. Lindsay, regular scheduled walk breaks is pillar number 3. I almost can hear the eyeballs rolling. We're talking about getting faster. Now we're telling people to walk. Why are walk breaks so important?
Yeah, so let me quickly explain where the pillar came from, Brad, because then that kind of sums it up. But I was out doing a trail ultra, and I was on a walk break early on, and I'd really been grappling with this problem: is how do I get people to run easy enough? I feel like a stuck record. I'm having coaching calls every day, and I'm going, you need to run your easy, run slower. You need to run your easy, run slows. And then while I was on this walk break, I was starting like, I'm busy walking now to save myself for later in the race. And I was like, boom, if people can't slow themselves down, I can slow them down by inserting walk breaks into their schedule. So that's where it came from. And the bottom line is it's there to do exactly what running at the correct pace is there to do. It's to slow you down, to reduce your eccentric stress. It drops your heart rate, which in turn drops your respiratory drive. So your overall feeling of perception in that session comes right down. And all in all, in the session you're running, you do less damage, you feel better. It cuts down your recovery time after this specific run, and it means that your subsequent runs are easier. Your high intensity runs are easier. So, the first three pillars, literally, if you just do the first three pillars right, you'll be feeling better by the weekend.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Lindsay, here's another one of those diagrams. I know this isn't your favorite, but it really does sort of illustrate this point well. Won't you just talk us through this?
Yeah, visually it shows you what's going on, but graphically it's terrible. But we've got two graphs there. The red graph is your typical runner in this endurance type of event that refuses to do any walking. They're just going to plug on, and as they run, they just get slower and slower and slower and slower until eventually they're doing long sections of walking and very little running. Then the green line is actually the average of a dotted line, which has the runner running at exactly the same speed as the runner in the red line, but with regular walk breaks. So in the early stages, that means this runner is running a little bit slower, but ultimately what happens is that somewhere in the last third or final quarter, that runner will catch the runner who refuses to walk and ultimately end up running much quicker and a much faster average time at the end.
Yeah, Lindsay, I love this. My dad was also a big runner, definitely not as fast as yours. But to this day, I'll tell my dad I went for a run and he'll say to me, how did it go? And I'll say to him, it went well. He said, did you walk? And I'll say to him, yes, I did. And the first thing that'll come out of his mouth is, it's because you're unfit. You're not training hard enough. If you have to walk in a run, doesn't matter. I can be training for a marathon or an ultra, but if I'm walking, according to my dad, I'm not fit enough. And we often get that pushback that people say, oh, well, I want to run fast. It doesn't make sense if I'm including walk breaks. And I want to tell you that you absolutely can run fast and include walk breaks. And a great example of this is Caroline Wasserman, who's on the screen right now. Caroline took up running because she wanted to lose weight after having a couple of children. And she ran her first Comrades Marathon back in 2009 in a time of 9 hours and 17 minutes. She's got some running ability, there's no doubt about that. And she teamed up with Lindsay in the build-up to the 2015 Comrades Marathon. And I remember watching that race on television. Comrades is a big deal in South Africa. Let me tell you, our national broadcaster shows it from start to finish on national TV. And I remember watching the race that year, and the ladies' race had been dominated by a pair of Russian twins for many, many years. And the commentators were so excited that there was someone else in the lead of the race for a change. And then all of a sudden, and this was early in the race, this is like 1/3, 20 miles into a 56-mile race, all of a sudden Caroline started walking. And the commentators were like, she's gone out too fast. She's absolutely blown it. And Caroline went on to win Comrades that year with a run-walk strategy in a time of 6 hours and 12 minutes. That's 6 minutes 36 minutes per mile. It was the fastest average pace for a female runner at Comrades on the up run ever with a run-walk strategy. Absolutely amazing. Another great example is Peter Price, who at the age of 64 or 63, it was just before his 64th birthday, he managed to run a marathon PB of 3 hours 30. He broke 3:30 for the first time. He said, I decided to include a couple of walk breaks in the second half, ran the second half faster than the first, and knocked 8 minutes off his PB at the age of 63, which is absolutely incredible. So just to sum this pillar up, okay, regular scheduled walk breaks allow you to stay fresher for longer so that you're able to run faster for longer. Lindsay, pillar number 4, and we touched on this, or I say we did, you alluded to this early on, that strength is so important. This one is crucial. Why is strength training so important?
Yeah, and literally it's because of this constant loss of strength as we get older. But here is the really good news about this pillar, is that by doing strength training, we can not only stop or reduce that loss of strength, we can actually reverse it. Okay, so you can essentially, the strength training is the part of this framework that allows us to literally turn back the clock. If we get you stronger, if we can build back some of that lost muscle, you suddenly put yourself in a position where you increase your capacity to do work. You've got that increased capacity to do work, you can do the workouts easier, that reduces the stress, that reduces the recovery time, that makes subsequent workouts much easier. So where this pillar is very different to the first three, it's no less important. In fact, if I was going to really assign an importance, I'd probably put an asterisk on this one, but they all work together. But it's not instant. So the other pillars are fantastic because you feel the results instantly. Strength training takes at least a couple of weeks, but it's the one that allows you to turn back the clock.
Lindsay, when you talk strength training, what sort of stuff are you talking about? Do we have to go to the gym and push massive weights? And how much strength training should we be doing?
Yeah, so both of those are really great questions, Brad. So the first answer is we don't need to go to a gym. There's nothing wrong with going to a gym. We are talking about, though, your more traditional form of strength training. So I'm not talking about Pilates. I'm not talking about yoga. Those are great, and they are extremely complementary forms of exercise and strength. But we're talking about doing squats, step-ups, working our way towards things like lunges, single leg squats, because we want to build muscle, and in particular, strengthen the legs. Some upper body work is also critical in there. Some core work is critical in there. And fortunately, a lot of those things can be done against body weight at home, and you can make really big improvements in the short to medium term before you need to add in any equipment. But you can start off with, once you need equipment, it's still going to be fairly inexpensive equipment, things like steps or stretch bands. It's only when you really get advanced that we need to start talking about physically adding weights into the picture.
So, some of us have got more body weight than others, Lindsay, when it comes to strength training.
And very important, Brad, in terms of how often. So again, in the post-50 population, the research is quite clear. Ideal is doing 3 days or more. Not 3 days or more, 3 days a week of strength training. Okay. I can already feel people going, whoa, how am I going to fit that in with my running? Okay. So how we work it at Coach Parry is to say, look, 3 is ideal. If you've been neglecting this component, you've got to do 3 in the short term to get back some of that strength that you've lost. And then as we move forward, we'll work through cycles where in some parts of the year you'll do 3 days a week, some parts of the year you'll do 2. And if you really are time compromised, the motto is simple. 3 is ideal, 2 is better than 1, and 1 is way better than none. So if you aren't doing any strength training, you have to at least do some.
Love that. Cool. Here's another one of those diagrams that I think really does illustrate this point well as well. So those squares on the screen are essentially your body's ability to do work. It's a natural function of aging. As time passes, as we get older, we lose that strength, as Lindsay has explained tonight. And because of that, our performance naturally declines. But when you include strength training as part of your training regime, you still lose strength long term. You're not going to win that battle, unfortunately, but because you are including strength training, the decline is not as steep, and because of that, your performance doesn't decline as much. So when you then superimpose those 2 performance lines on top of each other, the athlete that is doing strength training is going to slow down slower, if you'd like, than the athlete who is not doing strength training. So a great example is the gentleman who's on screen now, Trevor Smith. Trevor lives in Melbourne in Australia, and Trevor has been training with us for a number of years now, and he's a little bit like me, slightly on the heavier side, and neglects his running every now and again. But one thing that Trevor has been absolutely religious about is his strength training. And just a couple of weeks ago, he ended up running a marathon. And the little backstory is his marathon PB was running 2012. He ran a 3:51:31 when he was 45. He's now 40. He's now 54, and he said he set the goal, did the work, lost a couple of pounds as well. And he says, I did my strength work religiously. He says, I managed to run the race at an even pace, only 70 seconds slower in the second half of a marathon than he did his first. And he broke his PB by a whole 5 seconds. I mean, a PB is a PB. It doesn't matter. But he says, he came under 4 hours for the first time since 2016. He said, shout out to Shona and friends. The evil strength work has really paid off, which is amazing. Shona is our head of strength and conditioning. I'll introduce her to you a little bit later as well. But yeah, fantastic post from Trevor. So just to sum up this pillar, okay, and this is vital as well. Strength training builds muscle and keeps injury at bay so that you can keep doing the work you need to do. Lindsay, consistency. This is pillar number 5. A lot of coaches talk about consistency being the most important thing. We've got it as number 5. The truth of the matter is, if you don't do pillars 1, 2, 3, and 4 properly, number 5 becomes really difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I did allude to it a little bit earlier, is, you know, which pillar is more important than the others. But the reason 5 comes last is exactly as you said, because if we don't get the other 4 pillars right, the consistency gets difficult. And I think we can all agree that our best performance has come from training plans which we have implemented the most consistently. But that isn't the type of consistency that I'm talking about now. That we can refer to as discipline, if you like. The fact that you're on this webinar, that you're interested in still running well in your 50s, that tells me discipline isn't your issue. But being able to show up and do your workouts that you need to do week after week, month after month, and very importantly, year after year, that is the kind of consistency that we're talking about. And to build up that kind of consistency and allow you to build the layers that lead to the long-term success, we have to get pillar 1, 2, 3, and 4 right. And so again, just to illustrate this point very clearly in a picture, is you need to think of this consistency effectively as building a wall. So if you do all the pillars correctly and you get through 12-week block after 12-week block after 12-week block, you really start to lay this foundation of consistent running, consistent strength training, and that's what allows you to get better over time when your performance has been declining over the previous decade. And if we keep layering up year after year, we are going to get to a point where age ultimately starts to win that race. But if we're doing this work correctly and consistently, when we get to that point, we are really going to slow that decline down. And I use my dad as an example here again, because on that same local 5-mile 8K time trial where I only started beating him in his 50s, he now, over the last 4 years, has been between 37:58 and 38:01. So he's got this 3-second range. Some years faster than other years. It's not that he's slowed down 3 seconds over 4 years. That on its own would be incredible. But this year he's on a 38 flat. Last year he ended on a 38:01. So this year he's managed to get 1 second faster. But that only comes from this consistent year after year after year. So it really pulls the handbrake on that decline. And unfortunately, one of the mechanisms that comes into play as we get older is we not doing all the right things. We start to get gaps in our program. We're missing weeks of training. We're trying to play catch up. Eventually, we get a serious injury, we collapse in a heap, and we spend weeks or even months out of training. And the older you get, the more catastrophic that is, because we lose much more fitness. And then when we come back, it's so much harder to get back to where we were, if we can ever get back there at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And this on screen now is Ria van Wyk. She is the poster child when it comes to consistency. She's got the coolest story. Ria took up running quite late in life, and how she got involved, a friend of hers was training for a half marathon and invited Ria along on race day. And Ria stood on the side of the road and got absolutely swept away by the atmosphere and the vibe of the crowds. So much so that she went home and decided, you know what, I want to run that race next year. So she jumped online, she found us, started training, and literally did not miss a beat for that first year. She ended up running that half marathon in a touch over 2 hours. And then she had a chat to Lindsay, and Lindsay said to Ria, you've actually got some ability. Let's see if we can get you slightly faster. And Ria jumped on a sub 50-minute 10K training plan, and again, did everything right. She monitored her recovery. She did her strength training. She ran her easy runs easy enough. She watched her pacing, did everything right, included walk breaks. And then come race day, and I use the term race day quite loosely because Ria lives in a town, a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, and there's no races for miles around where she lives. So she had to measure out a 10K route, which she ran on her own. At the age of 58, she ran a 45, 47, 10K, and it is just because Ria is super, super consistent. And I was just reading something, I think day before yesterday, she ended up running a half marathon PB this past weekend as well, which is absolutely amazing. And again, it is just consistency. So yeah, superb example of that. So just to sum up this pillar, okay, and this is so crucial. It's important. Consistency allows you to build those layers so that you're able to improve over time. So let's chat about you for a minute if we can. If you're anything like me, you're at your computer watching this webinar, you've heard how this works, and you know that the strategies we've shown you today will greatly improve your running. And that's exactly why we've created the Faster Beyond 50 Master Plan. It's specifically designed to help you structure your training correctly so that you run at the correct paces and walk when you should, do the strength training that's most beneficial to you, to keep you injury free so that you're able to train consistently so that you can run faster well beyond your 50s. So if you want to recover from sessions quicker, not feel fatigued or tired all the time, run pain and injury free, improve your endurance and run faster well beyond your 50s, then this is specifically for you, okay? The Faster Beyond 50 Master Plan is made up of 5 different parts. I'm going to walk through each one in a tiny bit of detail, but the first one is the Faster Beyond 50 training frameworks. Part 2 is the Coach Parry Training Club. Part 3 is the specific strength training. Part 4 is the team of coaches, and part 5 is the Faster Beyond 50 community. Just digging into the Faster Beyond 50 training frameworks, you get access to 44 training frameworks that you can choose from that will help you structure your training so that you structure it correctly so that you're able to recover properly from all of the sessions. We've got training frameworks for all abilities. If you're just starting out and you're doing a couch to 5K, we've got a framework for you. If you're wanting to run a 5K or perhaps a half marathon, or if you want to go longer or super fast, sub 3-hour marathon as an example, we've got you covered. They are so easy to deploy into your training so that you run at the correct paces and walk when you should, and everything is included, okay? So all you need to do is focus on being consistent. Then you get access to the Coach Parry Training Club, and these are the tools that help you deploy these training frameworks into your schedule. You get your own drag and drop training schedule so that you can move things around and make it fit into your busy lifestyle. It syncs with your fitness device so you can track your progress over time. You also get access to our extensive content library, and it is so easy to use either on a web browser or on our very own iOS or Android app. So you've got it in your pocket with you all the time. Then you get access to our specific strength training. We live stream 4 classes every single week so that you can do the strength training that's most beneficial to you to make you stronger so that you can reverse those effects of aging. Plus, you get live feedback in these classes as well from our highly qualified strength and conditioning coaches so that you don't get injured. That gentleman that you see on screen there is Devlin, who's in the chat today, busy moderating the comments for us. As Trevor said, he mentioned Shona and her evil friends with the strength training. Devlin's one of those evil friends. So, yeah, Devlin's worked with athletes up to the Olympic level. He was very involved with, with Tatiana Schoenmaker, who won gold at the Tokyo Olympics in the 200-meter breaststroke, broke the world record as well. He's worked with professional sports teams. So you're in very good hands with Devlin and Shona and the rest of our team. And if you can't make one of the classes live for whatever reason, we record absolutely everything so you can catch up after the fact so you don't miss out on any of the training. Then you also get access to our team of coaches. We've got a team of highly qualified coaches and experts. So you're getting assistance from a trusted source. That is Shona Hendricks, who's on the screen there. Also heads up our strength and conditioning. Also our female athlete program as well. Highly qualified sports scientist, phenomenal coach, and also has worked with athletes up to the highest level. We host weekly live group coaching calls so you can get FaceTime with one of the coaches in real time to get the help you need. Plus, on a day-to-day basis, you get unlimited access to the coaches in the forum so that you're never alone on this journey. And then my favorite part of the Faster Beyond 50 community, of the master plan, is the community. You get access to 3,678 runners from around the world who are on exactly the same journey that you are to help keep you motivated and accountable. And because it's a closed group, there are no trolls. And what I mean by that is we're all in Facebook groups where you ask a question and before you know it, you're getting 20 different conflicting answers. You don't know who's giving that advice, first of all. And secondly, if they're even qualified to be giving you advice in the first place. So because ours is a closed group, everyone has a vested interest to be there. Your success is everyone's success. So you're going to be getting the exact same system that we've personally used to help thousands of runners run faster well into their 50s and beyond. Sorry, I'm struggling with a scratchy throat today. Like Bob Hurst, who ran a sub 150 Manchester half marathon, he said he managed to run a 1:49.10 second. He says it's the first time since his 40s. I'm now almost 75. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. He says the training regime and tapering have worked so well. I've now completed PBs in 2 10s and a half marathon this year. So glad I signed up to Coach Barry and so pleased the advice given whenever I asked. So absolutely amazing. That's all Gary Furlong, who at the age of 63, he says, by the way, following the training plans, I ran a PB 10K last week of 42.51. Not bad for 63, I think. Not at all, Gary. Or Roland, who lives in Melbourne, Australia as well. And he was hoping to run a sub 4-hour marathon, ended up running a sub 3:40 with a 52 second positive split. He said not too shabby, which is absolutely amazing. So if you'd like us to help you implement everything we've gone over today right away and save you months or even years of trial and error, we'd be absolutely delighted. And by now you're probably wondering about the price. If you had to work one-on-one with Lindsay or one of our other coaches, you'd be looking at $250 per month for that coaching. So over the course of a year, you're looking at $3,000. If you had to get yourself a personal trainer just to do the strength and conditioning that Lindsay was talking about, you'd be looking on average between $40 and $70 per session. As Lindsay said, the science recommends 3 sessions a week. So over the course of a year, that's $6,000. I personally think that the Faster Beyond 50 master plan is easily worth the same to you, if not more. The good news is we're not going to charge you that, okay? You can get 12 months access to the Faster Beyond 50 master plan on our website right now. It's currently selling for $597 for that year, but because you've invested some time with us here on this webinar, we're going to give you a full year's access, 12 months access, plus all the assistance we've spoken about today for only $297. But it does get better too. We're going to throw in a free onboarding or discovery call as a bonus if you'd like. And the reason we do this is twofold. The first reason is so that you can have peace of mind that you're on the right training framework for your goals and ability, but also so that we can show you around our training platform and show you exactly where you can get the help you need when you need it. We don't want it to be something as simple as the technology. It's really easy to use, but we don't want that to be the thing that stands in your way of succeeding. So here's what you need to do next, okay? Simply head over to coachparry.com/FBF, complete the checkout process, and then you're going to verify your email address. You'll get a link that you click on. verify your email address, create an account on the Coach Parry Training Club, and that's where you'll get access to the training frameworks. And then you'll also get a welcome video that'll show you around and also instructions on how to book that onboarding call so that we can get you set up and make sure that everything is working 100%. So just to recap, okay, if you want to recover from sessions quicker, not feel fatigued or tired all the time, run pain and injury free, improve your endurance, and run faster well beyond your 50s, then head over to coachparry.com/FBF. You can also click on the button that's on the screen right now, and that'll take you straight through to the checkout page as well. And then Lindsay has been super gracious with his time. And the reason being is he ran a marathon on the weekend, so he's recovering this week. He's not running. And he's opened up a few slots in his diary. Before we get to that, we've got the best guarantee ever. We want you to try everything for 30 days. If after 30 days you decide, you know what, this isn't for me, we will give you a full 100% refund, no questions asked. There's no wiggle room, no shenanigans, no monkey clauses, nothing. All you need to do is jot this email address down, okay? It's support@coachparry.com. It comes straight back to me, and we'll get that refund sorted for you right away. I don't think it'll come to that, but at least you know you've got that to fall back on. So 30 days, give it a try, and what have you got to lose? Absolutely nothing. But as I said, Lindsay's got a few spots in his diary open this week because he's recovering. For the first 5 people who joined today, Lindsay's been super gracious and opened up a couple of spots. We only do this for his one-on-one coaching clients, but on this webinar, for the first 5 who join, you're going to get a one-on-one call with Lindsay where he'll take a look at what you've done historically over the last over your running career and what you've done over the last 12 months and help you put together a solid plan on what to work towards over the next 12 months and then let's get that sort of plan rolling and get you there over the next year. So like I said, it's only for the first 5, and that will go really, really quickly. So if you are on the fence, I would suggest do it sooner rather than later. coachparry.com/FBF, or click on the Buy Now button under the Offers tab as well. So that's everything that you are getting access to. All the training frameworks, the Coach Parry Training Club, as well as the strength training, the live stream strength training, the team of coaches, and the Faster Beyond 50 community, plus that onboarding call to get everything set up and make sure that everything, you know where to get the help you need when you need it. And then for the first 5, that one-on-one call with Lindsay. Cool. Lindsay, let's jump into some questions, which is, I love this part of these masterclasses. Jeff wants to know, he says, I love the principles. How does it apply to us triathletes who need to factor in swimming and running? I'll take it he means swimming and biking, but how does this apply to triathletes or multi-sport athletes?
Yeah, very good question. So the principles obviously still apply. And my favorite story that I have to tell about this is that I've always believed that the average amateur triathlete just completely overtrains. It's the one sport where amateur athletes mimic what the pros do the closest. Hence why there's so many jokes all over the internet about triathletes being tired all the time and not having personality, so on and so on. But the reality is that the average triathlete unnecessarily overtrains, and that again becomes much more important as you get older. And not quite in the age group that we're talking to tonight, but about 4 years ago now, I was approached by the wife of a CFO, a CEO that was working in a startup, and he'd actually taken a sabbatical and trained for a year in a pro squad for an Ironman, and he'd done 40 something hours, and he was really disappointed after spending all that time. And it was December, and she came to me and said, listen, as a Christmas present, I want to get my husband a training program, but only if you are fairly confident you can just get him to enjoy an Ironman within an extremely busy schedule, starting up a company. And I said, of course I can. And his time restrictions were that he could only train 6 days a week, couldn't train on a Monday, could only train 6 days a week. And so I worked out a plan for him that had 7 days of training. And it had 7 sessions, of training across 6 days. Okay? He lost 17.5 kilograms on that program. And he did Ironman in 11:48. So the principles absolutely apply in triathlon too. It is a little bit more complicated, and whereas with the running frameworks, it's quite easy to choose the right framework, load it to your own plan, bounce a few ideas off one of our coaches in the forum, and tweak the plans to suit your lifestyle. With the triathlon, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So we don't actually put those triathlon plans on the front end. So as a triathlete, you have to engage with a coach. And there are two reasons for that. The one is that it is much more complicated putting all these principles together in a triathlon plan. And the second is that there's no triathlete with a standard ability across the three disciplines. So you're either at a beginner level swimming, advanced runner, okay cyclist, or you're an advanced swimmer, beginner runner. But the point is that the three disciplines don't often talk to each other in terms of discipline. So you need a coach to put in the appropriate swimming, appropriate cycling, appropriate running for the event that you're training for. Brad, I think you're muted. Or is it just me? Brad, can you hear me? You're muted, Brad.
They're gone deaf because I turned my mic off. Apologies about that. Jason saying, sorry, let me just say that again, just so everybody knows. 4 of those spots with Lindsay have been snapped up. So there is only 1 left. It is going to go pretty quickly. So if you are on the fence, coachparry.com/FBF, or you can click on the buy now button under the offers tab if you do want to get that spot with Lindsay, but it is going to go in the next couple of minutes. So definitely jump on there. Lindsay, Jason, interesting question. He says, I noticed giving up 1 or 2 beers a night seriously improved my recovery. Is it just him, or what role does alcohol play in recovery? Does it help? Does it not help?
Yeah, so Jason, the bad news is that absolutely, I mean, never mind the noticeable difference about how much better you feel. If you track sleeping heart rate and you track heart rate variability, those one unit of alcohol makes a difference. So yeah, and again, I can give you my personal stats are that my normal sleeping heart rate is between 38 and 42. And if I have 1 beer, that shoots up to between 49 and 52. 2 beers, 52 to 54. Then funnily enough, it doesn't really go up from there, even if I have 10 beers, it doesn't change too much, other than I feel much worse when I wake up in the morning. But yeah, so it absolutely makes a significant difference. And I think what's important with that is how do we use that information? Okay, most of us are not going to give up alcohol permanently, but it does tell you when you get into periods where you need to focus on recovery. In other words, the important 6, let's call it the final or peak 6 weeks leading into a really important event for you, then you probably want to just make sure that there are at least a couple of evenings a week that you are going to cut out alcohol so that it does help recovery. So I think for me, that's the important part of that information. It's not now that suddenly we must expect everyone to give up alcohol because, sometimes we do need something to take the edge off. Brad, that cough is getting to you, bud. You keep muting yourself.
Amateur hour here. I'm having an absolute doozy. Vittorio from Kent in the UK says, I've been running for over 25 years, but haven't run for a while. I hope to run a marathon in April, but I get hip and knee pain from around the 10-mile mark, which causes me to stop. How do I get past this? I've never had the hip checked out. I'm 52. What advice can you give to Vittorio to to get to that marathon in one piece?
Look, Victoria, the reality is that there may be something in the hip that does need some investigation. For me, the good news is that you are getting to 10 miles, and up to that point, there's either very low discomfort or hopefully no discomfort. And so that does give me hope that by doing strength training and the appropriate loading at the appropriate time and mixing in some cross training. So in other words, in your case, it may be more beneficial to, instead of running 4 days a week, you may run 3 days a week and add in 2 days of cycling, for example, or elliptical, something along those lines, so that we can still work on the cardiovascular component, but we take out some of that joint loading that comes with running, but very importantly, coupled with strength training.
Cool.
And the strength training may allow you to then sort that issue out so that you can build up to running a marathon.
Cool. Great question, Victoria. Thanks for that. Lindsay, question from Jason. Jason is a superb runner. He says, I used to be at a sub 2:45 marathon at 20 years ago. I stopped running because I lost the love. I recently started running again. Will this program work to get me back enjoying the running and racing again?
Look, I'm fairly confident it will. It'll definitely get you running well again. That running ability doesn't leave you. So the plan will definitely get you running well again. Finding your love for it is going to take potentially more than that. And a lot of that is going to revolve around your own life stresses, where you're running, who you're running with. What I love about this platform, and it came out this weekend because there were a lot of events that happened around the world this weekend, is the positive stories that came out and the momentum that creates and the motivation that helps to create for other people in the platform. So you're going to literally walk into a supportive family. And so when you do have low moments, they will be there to pick you up. Of course, part of what may have stolen your love from running is that sometimes that really competitive edge isn't what people are looking for. So the one thing I can also say is that there are plans in here that will get you to a point where you just enjoy the process of running and enjoy actually physically being out there. And then if you do want to run fast or chase times, that option is always there. You can pick out a sub 3 hour, sub 3:10, sub 3:30 marathon if you want to run marathons again. The point is there's going to be a running plan for people who just want to be healthy, lead a great life, spend time with their kids, spend time with their grandkids. And then there are plans for people who want to try and qualify, win, podium at bigger races.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, those 5 spots with Lindsay have been snapped up, but you're not going to lose out because we've got another bonus for you as well, which is phenomenal. We didn't even touch on it during this webinar, and that is nutrition. We've put together a free video course for you called Practical Nutrition for the Over 50 Athlete. Nutrition is a whole webinar on its own once you hit 50 and beyond. And we've got an in-house sports nutritionist as part of our team as well, Nikki de Villiers. She is a lecturer at one of the top universities in South Africa. She lectures the young dietetic students coming through, and she is phenomenal. She's put this course together. There's modules on bone health, muscle maintenance. There's a module on hydration, one on weight management, both losing and gaining weight, and then also one on nutrition for training and racing. So what to eat during, before, and after your training sessions and racing, but also not just what, but how much. Nikki takes a look at the latest science and then gives you practical examples on how you can make this work for you in your training. It is phenomenal course. If that's all you're interested in, we sell this on our website right now for $197. You can get access to that course, but as part of the master plan, we're going to throw that in as an extra $197 worth of value to the Faster Beyond 50 master plan. Yours absolutely free free to keep. So you're getting everything with 100% money back guarantee for only $297. So you can get access to that right now. Just head over to coachparry.com/FBF. You can also click on the buy now button under the offers tab as well. Lindsay, great strength training or balance question from Ashok. Ashok saying, I'm 62. I do 2 sessions of training with a personal trainer during the week, quite a lot of weights. And he says, I run a 5K on Saturday. I seem to be getting gradually faster each week, which is awesome. He says, is this balance okay?
Look, I'm pretty happy with the 2 strength sessions, basically because he is really working hard, pushing hard. He's definitely going to be improving in strength and putting back on some of the muscle he's lost. He's going to have to do a little bit more than 1 run a week, though. I'm pretty certain you will still see a little bit of improvement as you go along with those 3 sessions in the week. But if you really want to see some performance improvements in running, I'd say you're going to need to add at least 2 more sessions of running to that mix.
Question from Mark. I can answer this one. Is he a question that I can answer, which is amazing. Mark saying, is it possible to sign up now but delay the start? I'm recently injured last weekend and need to recover and rehab from that before starting. Mark, the short answer is yes. All you need to do, so I explained the process. When you sign up, you'll get a link to verify your email address and then set up a profile. If you hang on to that link, don't do that step until you are ready. Your year will start when you verify that link. But what I would suggest is if you do sign up, pop me an email. That's support@coachparry.com. Just let me know that you are signing up, but you're only going to start down the line when you're ready to. And then when you do start, just pop us a mail again, just to make sure. Then we can just check your account to make sure that your year starts then, and it's the full year from that point. So absolutely. But Lindsay, just on that point too, there is a lot of value. I mean, we see it often. Folks sign up and they're injured. Having somebody to help you come back from that injury, you don't have to be in tip-top shape to be on the platform. And sometimes it's nice to have someone that helps you through that process.
Yeah, and there are a few people that are going through that process. They kind of see us as a last chance saloon. Might as well try it. Nothing else has worked. Place to come, and then we get some really great recovery. So look, my background is in injury rehabilitation, and obviously I can't diagnose everything over the internet, but I have a really good understanding of injuries and what's required to come back from them. So particularly if there is an actual diagnosis and there is a physical therapist in the picture, then having access to the forum and asking questions and knowing when to do what in terms of when you start running again is extremely helpful to have that. Cool. As
great question, Mark. Yeah, we look forward to. I hope you do decide to join. We look forward to sort of seeing how you go coming back from that injury.